السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Hello my students. This lesson is the first lesson in unit 3. This is about the soil and its components. This unit, there are two lessons in this unit. The first one is about the soil and its components. Inshallah, in this lesson, we will understand what is meant by the soil and what are the main components of the soil. Also, we will learn about how the soil is formed, the relation between the living organism and the soil, and the components. The last point is the main components of the soil. Here, start again, Bismillah. Do you know that the earth that we live has many layers? The upper layer of the earth is called the soil. You know that we can't plant anything on the ceramic, for example, because it is so solid. The roots of the plants can't penetrate this solid layer. So plants to grow, they need not so compacted layer. Compacted يعني متماسكة. مش عايزين النبات عشان ينمو ما يحتاجش لأرض صلبة. He needs a non-compacted layer. So we can define the soil here, down here. Soil is a thin, non-compacted superficial layer which covers the earth's crust. Again, soil is a thin, non-compacted superficial. Superficial means upper layer. Non-compacted superficial layer which covers the earth's crust. If you go everywhere, you can notice that the superficial or the upper layer of the soil has different color and texture. They have different colors and textures. If you go to the desert, you can see the soil, its color may be yellow or relatively orange, maybe white as the color of the sand. If you go to Egypt, you will notice that the soil is dark. The superficial layer, the upper layer of the soil, here is dark, here it is yellow. This is why. This means that they are already superficial layer, they are upper layer, and also non-compacted. The word non-compacted means it is loose, مفككة. Not compacted يعني مش صلبة، ليست صلبة. Okay? But they have different colors. Also, if you have part of the soil between your fingers, you will feel that the texture, يعني الملمس, texture of this soil is different. So the soil is different because they made of different rocks. They made of pieces of rocks and these rocks are different. Also, the soil, most soil contain water. But the ratio of water or the amount of water is different from a soil to another. It's in the desert soil, it's very rare, but in other places like Delta Masr, Egypt Delta, it has much water more than the desert sand. Also, the soil contains air. How can you explain that soil contains air? If you dig through the soil, if you dig into the soil, can you see some insects live inside the soil? Yes, of course. As there are some insects, this means that this soil has oxygen, has air, because these living organisms must breathe. So the most components of the soil are rocks, water, and air. Also, soils have different color. This different color is related to a substance called humus. Called humus. Humus. What is humus? Humus is dark brown. Its color is dark brown or black. This humus results from the decayed remains of animals and plants. When we die, when animals die, when plants are cut and die also, there are some remains of our bodies, of the dead bodies. Do you remember one day when we talk about the first term, the decomposers that can decompose the living organisms? These bodies, when they are decomposed into very small particles, very tiny particles, these particles is added to the soil and change its color. These particles or the decayed remains are called humus. So if we want to define humus, it is the decayed animals, the decayed remains of plants and animals. Decayed remains of plants and animals in the soil. And the humus takes the soil or gives the soil its color. Also, humus increases fertility of the soil. If the soil contains much humus, it is fertile soil. Fertile means good soil. If the soil doesn't have much humus, it is not fertile or not good soil. Now we have defined what is humus. It is the decayed remains of plants and animals. It has brown or dark color. The soil is non-compacted superficial layer of the soil that covers the earth. That covers the earth's crust. This point is what is the importance of soil as one of the environment main component. We said now the plants can't grow without soil. When we say plants can't grow without soil, this means that there is no life without plants and there is no life without soil. That's why, because plants depend on the soil and the animals and people also depend on plants. Okay? Without soil, there will be no plants, there will be no animals, there will be no living organisms. Okay? Also, as the soil is important for plants because plants absorb water, take water minerals from the soil and grow. Animals eat plants and we feed on them also. In addition, many organisms take the soil as home. We said before, some insects, some small worms, they live inside the soil and take it as home. And also some other kinds like some snakes live inside the soil, some you can say some rats, mice, some of them also live inside the soil. So they take it as home. Okay? But this is the relation between the soil and the living organisms, and this is very, very important. How the soil is formed? How this thin superficial layer is formed? Soil is formed by what is called soil erosion. Soil erosion. soil erosion. Erosion means breaking down the rocks into small pieces. If we have a rocky place, مكان فيه صخور كتير, after a time, these rocks are broken down into small pieces. The breaking down of these rocks into small pieces is called erosion. How can this erosion happen? You know that when it rains, water flow breaks down rocks into small pieces. When it rains, as water goes from the top of mountains down, it breaks this rock into small pieces. Also, when wind moves, okay, it also breaks down some rocks. Rocks break down into small pieces over the time and it changes of the temperature. If we have an example about the effect of temperature upon the soil, if I ask you to have a small piece of sandstone, if you go to any desert at any time and there is sandstone, بيسموه بالعربي الحجر الرملي. If you have this sandstone, put this sandstone into water and then put it in a plastic bag, then keep them inside a fridge, inside the freezer. When it is frozen, take it out of the freezer and hit it with a hammer it. You see that it will break down into small pieces. That's why, because when water expands, when water fills the cracks inside this small piece and frozen, it increases in size. So this rock can be broken down to small pieces. I only explain to understand what is the effect of temperature. When temperature fall down, it freezes water. This water can break this frozen water or ice can break down these rocks into small pieces. You can feel this also if you have water inside a glass bottle. A glass bottle, fill it completely with water and put it inside the freezer. After a time, this bottle is burst. بتتكسر this bottle is broken because when water freezes, it expands, increase in size. So this is called soil erosion, means breaking down the rocks of the soil into small pieces. This happens by water, wind, and temperature. Water, number one, we have water, yes. Number two, we have wind, and number three, change in temperature. Okay? These factors break down soil into small pieces. Okay? This is the definition of the soil again. We talked about it now. Soil components. Also, we talked about a part of this point. We said before when the animals, all living organisms need the soil, and when they die, these living organisms, the leaves of the plants, the roots of the plant, stems of the plants, the insects, reptiles, people, any died organism, they are decayed and increase the fertility of the soil. We said also that plants take nutrients from the soil. Some animals take the soil as a shelter, yes, as home. Also, some small organisms, they live inside the soil and during their life they make tunnels. تعمل أنفاق فيها. These tunnels help air and water to get into the soil. When these worms لما ديدان تعمل tunnels أنفاق في التربة أنفاق, these tunnels allow water and air to penetrate the soil. Okay? And when they die, when the leaves of the plants, when the parts of the other parts of the plant, when the worms, when the insects, when people, when any living organism die, he is changed into humus. This humus increases the fertility of the soil. Yes, here he says animal also add nutrients to the soil. When they die underground, their body decays and cover become and over time become humus. Okay? This is about the relation between living organisms and the soil. And the following part, we see that the layers of the soil. There are two main layers of the soil. We have the top soil layers, okay, and rocky layers. Topsoil layers, and we have rocky layers. Okay, this is rocky layers. You know that from also the previous part. In the top layer, this top layer contains what? Roots and animals are in the top layer of the soil. Humus is also in the top layer. Some small pieces of rock might be in the top layer. So it means that the top layer contains mainly the roots of the plants and the animal decayed. These top layers, the roots of the plant penetrate it and fix the soil. Do you know that the soil also, when there are some plants grow in soil, these plants fix the soil. They prevent the soil from erosion, protect the soil from erosion. عندما يكون التربة حينما يغطيها بعض النباتات، جذور هذه النباتات تثبت التربة وتمنع تآكل التربة أو تمنع erosion. Okay? They take water and roots push deep in the soil. They take water and nutrients from the soil. Okay? Roots also hold the plants in the soil. Roots help the soil become, because they hold the soil in place. Soil erosion doesn't happen. We said now the erosion, the roots prevent the soil erosion because they fix the soil. Okay? This is the upper layer, or it is called the upper layers, and we have the rocky layers, top layer and the rocky layers. These rocky layers, when we talk about the upper layer before, it has small pieces of rocks. This top layer, it has small pieces of rocks, and the rocky layer, it comes after it. This rocky layer, you can see some of the huge trees, their roots may reach to this layer, but most of the trees, their roots doesn't reach here. Beneath the top layer of the soil, there are lower layers of the soil, don't have much humus. So we said now the humus is found in the top layer, okay, but it is very small or very little in the rocky layer. Here in this picture, you can see some earthworms and some spiders make their homes on the ground. They dig tunnels. We said this before in the soil. These tunnels allow air and water and nutrients to pass easily throughout the soil. Okay, this is the effect of some living organism in the soil. And now we are talking about soil components. If you have some of the soil, and put it inside in a place from the garden, from the house next to you. If you have some of the soil, put them in a cylinder and add water. Then shake them very well. After that, leave them in a horizontal place, horizontal surface. حطهم على مكان أفقي زي table or desk or something else. And after a time, you can see that this soil اللي انت أخدتها is separated into layers. Down here we have gravel. Here from down to up, because we arrange them as the size of the rocks, size of the granules, size of the particles. Gravel, so big. Large particle of sand, little than gravel. The silt is smaller than the sand, and small particles of mud. Small particles of mud, this is very, very small, and the humus, this is the decayed remains of living organisms. So we can arrange them: gravel from down to up, gravel, sand, silt, mud, and humus. 5 components: gravel, sand, silt, mud, and humus. These are the components of the soil when we are separated inside a glass. This is the end of the lesson, and I'd like to show you this this video. Okay. This is this video about how the soil erosion happens.
Begin by breaking down of rocks and turn them into fragments by the wind and the rush of water vigorously. Then water carries these fragments and transferred them to another location, and then deposited these fragments, and as time passes, soil is formed. To identify the components of the soil, conduct this activity. Take part of the soil of your school garden and put it in a glass cylinder. Add an amount of water into the cylinder with continuous stirring using glass rod until mixing soil with water. Leave the cylinder on a horizontal surface. Check the
You see here the soil is separated into different layers. Okay.
deposited components in the cylinder. Do you notice that the components were deposited as layers? The top layer consists of small grains of silt and some humus.
Okay. This video is also
like you, where we teach you simple science experiments with things you can find at home.
who shows you how the remains of the soil or
soil is the main reason
the components of the soil are separated when he adds water to them.
Have had sustainable agriculture, and we'd still be nomadic hunter-gatherer tribes. But to find out what soil is made up of, we're going to need a few ingredients. Well, one, you're going to need soil. I've also got this clear bottle. Could be glass, could be plastic. That's your choice. And I filled it with a little bit of water. And I have this homemade funnel I made. The idea is to pour the soil into the funnel. And once you've successfully managed to make a huge mess, you take a bottle of water, cover the end, and shake it. Once you set it down, you realize that the heavier particles, that sand and gravel, sink to the bottom almost immediately. Let it sit for a couple of hours. Actually, I'd suggest be rewarded, because this is what it looks like at the end of a day.
طبعا this is the next one he brought now. He is prepared before to show, and now the layer are so clear in it.
What happens overnight is that your particles start settling down according to their size. Right at the bottom, you've got really heavy particles, and right at the top, you've got the super light ones. What are these layers? Now, that's the really important part here. Right at the bottom, you've got sand and gravel. Just above that, you've got finer silt. And immediately above that, you've got the superfine clay. What you see suspended at the top is humus, or an organic matter. And the color of the water is attributed to the minerals that are dissolved in it. Each and every component that you see has its own purpose to play. The humus right at the top is organic matter, which is what feeds the plant. Below that is clay. Clay has the ability to trap water. This keeps water molecules at the roots long enough for them to absorb them. Below that is silt, which is where all the important minerals are. And finally, at the bottom, you have sand and gravel, which helps drain the waters quickly so that the roots don't rot. This kind of soil, which has all these parts, is called loam. And based on the percentage of each individual component, they can be classified into sandy loam, into silty loam, or into clay loam. What we've got here is sandy loam. Try it out at home and tell me what the soil at your place is like. Leave them in the comments below. This episode was brought to you by Champak and One Network. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe.
Thank you so much. And this is the end of our lesson. If you need anything, you can ask me later. Thank you, my dear students. Thank you so much again.
Hi, I'm Jared.
We
Welcome
will
to
meet
Fun
in another
Science
video again,
Demos.
inshallah.
The idea today is erosion.